They arrived in Goldshire and stepped into the Lion's Pride Inn. It was pretty quiet. 2 dwarves sat at a table staring into the roaring fire and throwing back stout. A male human sat in the corner, looking into his drink with a forlorn expression. Nanania strode towards the dwarves and gave them a look. "Go on then," she encouraged sternly. The dwarves looked at each other before downing their drinks and wiping grimy hands over their dripping beards. Nanania turned to her companions and gave a little curtsy. "Do have a seat." Sharm nestled herself awkwardly into a chair one of the dwarves had previously occupied. It was still warm. The others sat down too with uncomfortable smiles. Just then, a massive bleating could be heard from outside, followed quickly by the sound of giggling. They all turned to look at the entrance. A Thenist came staggering around the corner with leaves and twigs in his hair, accompanied by 2 slender night elves. Nanania burst out laughing. "Troughs are outside, Athenist," she tittered. Athenist staggered forward holding his head. "What the bloody hell, Nanania?" he ranted. The night elves on his arm rushed over to where the others were sitting and rudely plonked themselves down cross-legged on top of the table. Both gazed at Athenist with a happy, accomplished expression. Raiden tilted to look around the elves at Athenist. This probably isn't the time for company, Athenist." The elves burst out laughing. Sharm looked at Nanania, who was staring with contempt at the elves. Athenist shook his head like a dog, sending his blonde locks flying before taking a few tentative steps towards the elves. They held out their arms and pulled him down between them. Nanania rolled her eyes. "Athenist, get rid of these girls before I turn you into a monkey, and you know I will." Athenist's eyes grew wide. Wait, he stammered. "I want you to meet Elvira and Zola. Girls, say hello." The elves waved cutely and giggled. One of them winked at Crowin. Parantaya's cheeks brightened as she clenched her hands into fists. Raiden stood up. He ushered Athenist to the side. "Come on, man. What are you doing?" He stopped abruptly as he felt a pinch on his backside and then heard the customary giggles. He chose not to acknowledge it and continued. "Nanania will turn you into a monkey, you bloody fool. And then how will we finish our quest? I'm not for 1 second sticking you into my backpack and feeding you bananas." More giggles. Sharm rose and stepped in front of the elves. "Now, girls, I'm sure you can understand that we have some rather important business to discuss here, so..." Zola leaned forward. "So?" she asked, raising her eyebrows. Elvira nudged her and she stumbled forward into Sharm. "Oops!" Elvira smirked. Nanania got up and stood next to Sharm with her hands on her hips. "Oh, for God's sake, if you want Athenist, just take him," she sighed. "You'll be doing us all a favour." Athenist looked hurt. Elvira stepped forward in front of Nanania and mimicked her, placing her hands on her hips and tilting her head. "We think you should leave." She flicked a strand of her hair over her shoulder. "This is our place anyway. We always come here, and we won't be shoved out by a bunch of noobs." Zola snickered loudly and nodded. Nanania's eyes flamed hotly. "You pair of twits! I'll show you who's the noob!" She lurched forward and grabbed Zola's hair. Sharm grabbed Nanania around the waist and pulled her back. "Nana!" Zola regained her posture and smoothed her hair down, giving Nanania the dirtiest look imaginable. "Girls, girls!" Athenist interjected. He placed himself between the 2 elves, Sharm and Nanania. "Can't we all just kiss and make up?" he smiled. Sharm clipped the back of his head. "No, we can't. Now either you get these girls to leave or we'll go on without you, and I will not hold Nanania responsible for anything she might decide to turn you into this time." She gave Nanania a knowing smile. Nanania nodded gratefully. One of the dwarves from earlier staggered heavily over to their table and bent down, exposing a rather unpleasant builder's bottom. "Forgot me axe!" He gave the elves an appreciative glance before staggering back outside. "Hi, Dengle!" they trilled at the same time. They turned back to Nanania and Sharm, pursing their lips mischievously. "Why is she so quiet?" they asked, pointing at Parantea. "Do you always fight her battles for her?" "I didn't realise this was my battle," Parantea quipped. "Oh, it is when we want to play with your man," replied Zola, winking again at Crowan, who averted his eyes quickly. "Hey, what about me?" whined Athenist. "And may I ask, what is wrong with Raiden here?" Raiden shifted his hooves. "Don't bring me into this, I beg of you." The elves tittered and slithered over to Raiden. "He's a bit too tall and Tauren-y," giggled Elvira, ruffling Raiden's hair. Sharm almost burst out laughing at how awkward a Tauren could look. "But him, on the other hand," they pointed at Crowan. "He's just right." Parantea jumped up, her chair squeaking across the stone floor. The innkeeper began to quickly polish glasses from behind the safety of the bar. "Now, listen here, you bunch of trollops!" The elves gasped. Parantea huffed. "Why don't you just leave us alone?" Elvira smiled sweetly. "With pleasure, dear. We only want your men." She traced her finger lightly over Parantea's shoulder mockingly. "Right, that's it. I've had enough." Nanania held her staff up above her head and muttered some words of magic before bringing the staff clashing to the ground. Where the elves had stood, two little black cats blinked back. They looked at each other and hissed before batting paws and claws back and forth. "I only just learnt that spell," whispered Nanania into Sharm's ear. "So pleased to finally try it out." Raiden gave a sullen Athenist a hearty pat on the back and ushered him into a chair. "Cheer up, eh?" He slid a flagon of mead in front of him. Athenist sighed as the two black cats chased each other out of the inn, meowing loudly.